My foster mom, Sarah, was a monster in human skin. She starved us, beat us, and made our lives a living hell. But the worst part? She did it all with a smile, convincing everyone around her that she was a saint, a savior to unwanted children like my siblings and me. Can you believe the audacity? Can you imagine living in a house where the person who is supposed to protect you is actually your tormentor? Tell me, honestly, what would you have done if you were in my shoes? Would you have fought back? Or would you have just curled up and accepted your fate? It all started when I was 6 years old. My biological parents, God rest their souls, died in a tragic car accident, leaving my 2 younger sisters, Lily and Daisy, and me orphaned. We were shuffled from one temporary foster home to another, each one a blur of unfamiliar faces and fleeting comforts, until we landed on Sarah's doorstep. She seemed like an angel at first, with her warm smile and comforting words. Her house was beautiful, filled with toys and bright colors, a stark contrast to the sterile environments we were used to. She hugged us tight, promised us a forever home, and told us we were safe. We, naive and desperate for a loving family, believed her. We really did. I remember feeling a sense of hope I hadn't felt since my parents were alive. Lily, who was only 4 at the time, clung to Sarah's leg, and even Daisy, a shy 2-year-old, offered a rare giggle. We thought we had found our safe harbor. Oh, how wrong we were. The facade didn't last long. It started subtly, almost imperceptibly. A forgotten meal here, a harsh word there. Then came the rules. Endless, arbitrary rules that changed daily, designed to confuse and control us. We weren't allowed to play outside, we couldn't watch TV, and our conversations were heavily monitored. Sarah would often forget to buy groceries, claiming she was short on money, despite her expensive car and designer clothes. We'd go to bed with rumbling stomachs, dreaming of food we couldn't have. I remember one particular night, my stomach aching with hunger. I crept into the kitchen, hoping to find a leftover crust of bread. Sarah caught me. She didn't yell. She didn't hit me then. Instead, she just stared at me with this cold, calculating look, and said, "If you're so hungry, you can eat the dog's food." I was horrified. I was only 6, but I knew that was wrong. I backed away, my heart pounding, and retreated to the shared bedroom Lily, Daisy, and I had. I huddled with my sisters, trying to comfort them, but I was just as scared. The physical abuse began a few months later. It started with minor slaps, then escalated to full-blown beatings. She'd use a wooden spoon, a belt, or sometimes just her bare hands. The reasons were always trivial. A spilled glass of water, a smudge on the floor, a whispered conversation between us. She'd always do it when no one else was around, making sure there were no witnesses. And after each beating, she'd hug us, tell us she loved us, and that it was for our own good. "This hurts me more than it hurts you," she'd say, tears in her eyes. A performance so convincing that even I, in my pain and confusion, almost believed her sometimes. She was a master manipulator. To the outside world, Sarah was the epitome of a loving foster parent. She volunteered at our school, baked cookies for fundraisers, and always had a radiant smile on her face. Our social worker, Mrs. Peterson, visited once a month, and Sarah would transform into this angelic figure, showering us with affection and praise in front of her. She'd always prepare a lavish meal, make sure we were dressed in our best clothes, and coach us on what to say. "Tell Mrs. Peterson how happy you are here, how much you love your new mommy," she'd whisper, her eyes narrowed in a silent threat. We were terrified to speak up, to reveal the truth, knowing the repercussions would be severe once Mrs. Peterson left. We were trapped in a gilded cage, starving for love and food, but too scared to fly free. I was getting older, almost 9, and I started to understand the depth of Sarah's cruelty. She would deliberately isolate us from other children, making sure we had no friends. She told us that other kids were bad influences, and that we were better off with just each other. Lily and Daisy, being younger, were more susceptible to her manipulations. Lily started to believe that Sarah was truly helping us by teaching us discipline. And Daisy, always the quietest, just became more withdrawn. It broke my heart to see them slowly succumb to her warped reality. I tried to protect them, to shield them from her abuse, but I was just a child myself, and she was an adult, a powerful, terrifying force. I took most of the beatings, trying to draw her anger away from my sisters. I remember one time, Lily had accidentally broken a vase, and Sarah was furious. Before she could lay a hand on Lily, I stepped in front, taking the blow myself. The pain was excruciating, but seeing Lily's terrified face, I knew I had to be strong for them. That night, I cried silently into my pillow, wondering if we would ever escape this nightmare. Life became a constant game of survival. We learned to hide food, to communicate in whispers, and to anticipate Sarah's moods. We developed a secret language, a series of glances and hand signals, to warn each other of impending danger. We were a unit, a small, broken family against the world. School was our only escape, a brief respite from Sarah's tyranny. But even there, we had to be careful. We couldn't show any bruises, couldn't talk about what was happening at home. Sarah had threatened us, telling us that if we ever spoke a word, we would be separated and sent to different homes, never to see each other again. That threat, more than any physical pain, kept us silent. The thought of losing Lily and Daisy was unbearable. I needed to protect them, to keep us together. One day, I overheard Sarah on the phone talking to someone about a large sum of money. She mentioned government checks and allowances for the children. That's when it clicked. She wasn't keeping us out of some twisted sense of duty or love. She was doing it for the money. We were her cash cows. The realization was a punch to the gut. It wasn't just about her being cruel. It was about her being a calculating, heartless opportunist. She was exploiting our vulnerability, our orphan status, for her own financial gain. The anger that surged through me was unlike anything I had ever felt. It was a cold, burning rage that solidified my resolve. I knew then that I had to do something, anything, to get us out of there. I couldn't let her continue to profit from our suffering. I had to find a way to expose her. So that's the situation I was in, and I had to make a choice. Here I was, a child, trying to outsmart a grown woman who had perfected the art of deception. I had to be careful, meticulous, and brave. Before I tell you what happened next, I want you to pause and comment below what you would have done in my shoes. Would you have tried to gather evidence? Would you have secretly reached out for help? Or would you have just kept quiet, hoping for a miracle? What would your next move be? The plan started to form in my mind slowly but surely. I knew I couldn't just tell someone. Sarah was too good at manipulating people. I needed proof. I started observing her, looking for patterns, for anything that could be used against her. I noticed she kept all her important papers in a locked drawer in her bedroom. My heart hammered in my chest every time I thought about going into her room. But I knew it was our only chance. One afternoon, while Sarah was out grocery shopping, a rare occurrence where she actually bought food, I seized my opportunity. My sisters were playing quietly in the living room, oblivious to my mission. I crept into Sarah's bedroom, my hands trembling. The drawer was locked as expected. I searched around, desperately looking for a key, and finally found a small, ornate key hidden under a stack of magazines on her nightstand. My fingers fumbled with the lock, and with a soft click it opened. Inside there were stacks of documents, bank statements, government letters, and our adoption papers. I quickly scanned through them, my eyes widening with each discovery. There it was, in black and white. The substantial monthly payments she received for our care. And right next to it, her recent credit card statements showing lavish purchases, expensive dinners, designer clothes, even a vacation package. It was all there, the undeniable proof of her deceit. I didn't have a phone or a camera, so I couldn't take pictures. But I had an idea. I found a small notebook and a pencil in the drawer and meticulously copied down all the relevant information. Dates, amounts, account numbers, and specific items on the credit card statements. I copied everything I could, knowing I might not get another chance. I also wrote down specific dates and details of some of her worst abuses, making sure to include how she manipulated us. I folded the papers carefully and hid them in the sole of my worn-out shoe, a place I knew she would never think to look. My next challenge was getting this information to someone who would believe me. Mrs. Peterson was coming for her monthly visit in a few days. That was my chance. I spent the next few days practicing what I would say, how I would subtly slip her the note without Sarah noticing. The day of the visit arrived, and my stomach churned with a mix of fear and determination. Sarah was in full angel mode, fussing over us, offering us snacks, and smiling sweetly. Mrs. Peterson arrived, and after the usual pleasantries, she sat down with us in the living room. Sarah, as always, stayed close by, monitoring our every word. As Mrs. Peterson was getting ready to leave, she gave us each a hug goodbye. This was it. As she hugged me, I quickly, almost imperceptibly, slipped the folded note into her hand. Her eyes met mine, and I think she saw something in them. A flicker of desperation that transcended my carefully rehearsed smile. She squeezed my hand gently, a silent acknowledgement, and then left. The next few days were agonizing. Every time Sarah looked at me, I felt a surge of panic, wondering if she knew. But she didn't seem to suspect anything. Then, about a week later, everything changed. I was at school when the principal called me to her office. Mrs. Peterson was there, but this time she wasn't smiling. She looked serious, concerned. 2 police officers were also present. My heart leaped into my throat, but it wasn't fear I felt, it was a surge of hope. They asked me to tell them everything, without Sarah present. And I did. I poured out my heart, every detail of the abuse, the starvation, the emotional torment. I told them about the hidden money, the fake smiles, the threats. I showed them the crumpled note from my shoe. My sisters, Lily and Daisy, were also taken from school and interviewed separately. They too, finally found their voices spurred by my courage. Their stories corroborated mine, painting a chilling picture of Sarah's cruelty. The police immediately went to Sarah's house with a search warrant. They found the original documents, the evidence I had copied, and more. They found hidden cameras Sarah had used to monitor us, confirming her manipulative tactics. Sarah was arrested that very day. I heard later that she tried to play the victim, crying and denying everything, but the overwhelming evidence, combined with our consistent testimonies, sealed her fate. The aftermath was a whirlwind. Lily, Daisy, and I were taken to a new foster home, a temporary placement, but this one was different. The foster parents, Mr. and Mrs. Davies, were kind, gentle, and understanding. They didn't try to force us to be happy. They just gave us space and warmth. They understood our trauma, our fear of adults, and they were patient. We received therapy, which helped us process the years of abuse. It was a long road, filled with nightmares and flashbacks, but we had each other, and we had people who genuinely cared. Sarah was charged with multiple counts of child abuse and fraud. She was found guilty and sentenced to a lengthy prison term. Justice, slow and painful, had finally been served. It wasn't a sudden fix. The scars remained, both visible and invisible. But we were safe. We were together. And we were finally free. Looking back, it still feels surreal, like a nightmare I barely escaped. But it was real. And it taught me so much about resilience, about the darkness that can hide behind a smile, and about the unwavering power of hope, even in the darkest of times. It also taught me that even the smallest voice, when brave enough to speak up, can bring down a monster. So to anyone out there who might be going through something similar, please don't suffer in silence. Your voice matters. It can change everything. Like this video if you were on my side, if you felt my pain, and if you believe that every child deserves a safe and loving home. Subscribe for more stories like this, stories of survival, of courage, and of finding light in the darkest corners. And please, share your final thoughts on this whole mess in the comments section. I'll see you all in the next story.